a show that has 17 seasons and counting. Some of them aren't gonna make it through. Some of them are pretty up. But my question is, how the hell has a show with an episode featuring a drug-addicted homeless priest falling in love with an actual dog remained a critical darling and a fan favorite for almost 2 decades? Seems physically impossible. That man had sex with dogs several times in the show. So Tuglets, make yourself a big stack of grilled Charlies and grab yourself a quenching Wolf Cola, because today we're gonna celebrate everything Sunny. Play the music, because it's public domain. They don't own it. We can play it for the sequence opener. Do it. The beginnings of Sunny were almost as unlikely as its eventual success. Charlie Day, Glenn Howerton, and Rob McElhenney all met while auditioning for the movie Tuck Everlasting. Remember Tuck Everlasting? Remember the book? I remember it because my name's Tucker, and that was the only book, and it was boring. It was about like a little boy who never died, I don't know, and they were in the woods, and like his bare toes were in the moss. That's all I remember in the book. That's probably not even true. At the time, though, they were all just 3 unemployed actors who had recently moved to LA. Between auditions and day jobs, McElhenney started writing screenplays, and Howerton purchased a Panasonic DVX 100A digital camera, which was the first consumer camcorder to record at a frame rate the same as TV and movies. So he was throwing out that big money. And how did he get that money? He used it from the money he made by being on the failed TV show, That 80s Show. I don't know if you guys knew this, there was That 70s Show, but there was also That 80s Show, and it failed spectacularly. But like I said, the gang didn't have much acting work, so they started shooting their own films about a group of struggling actors in LA. Quick note, if you're writing a book or a screenplay or anything, normally you never want to make of any piece of art about you being an artist trying to make art. It never works. Like a screenplay about a guy writing a screenplay or a TV show about actors trying to act. It's just like the most basic thing you can do, and it's pretty fucking boring. After editing a few of these short films, Charlie, Rob, and Glenn began to see its potential as a Curb Your Enthusiasm style show. And you have to hand it to these guys, because even though we look back and recognize how funny their sensibilities are, they were still pitching a show to Fox, HBO, VH1, CBS, and all the other heavy hitters that contained some of their most insane early bits. Like Charlie faking cancer, or Mac falling in love with a transgender woman. And there's nothing wrong with falling in love with a transgender woman, but the way they were doing it, they did it wrong. If you were just looking at this on paper, you'd think this was destined for cancellation from the jump. And predictably, almost everybody passed. Except the big dogs at FX, who literally they needed something. The FX president, John Landgraf, who took the meeting as a favor to McElhenney's agent. By the way, I don't know if I'm saying his last name right. I always f it up. When I hear it, I remember it, and then it's gone. McElhenney? Whatever. You guys are probably gonna get really mad at me. I think I'm fucking it up. But he saw the potential in the show. It was creative and could be filmed much cheaper than the average sitcom. The low risk, high reward of such a cheap show was exactly what FX was looking for in its next comedy. The gang was given about $400,000 to reshoot their pilot, which mathematically was about an infinite amount of money more than what they used to shoot the original pilot, because they literally had no god money, and they were asked to switch the jobs of the characters along with the setting of the show. Like I said, actors trying to act in LA, who gives an absolute about that? You think it's interesting because it's your life, that sucks. And even though the talent of Day, Howerton, and McElhenney is undeniable, the switch from struggling actors to dive bar owners in Philly really hit on something special. Even if Philly is a garbage city full of garbage people, which I've said before, I fucking hate that city, but I'm kind of scared because those people are actually really mean and will beat the shit out of me, so I just won't go there. But I still believe that. Setting the show there does give it a little bit of lowbrow, like, hometown excitement. Like, if there was a show set in Worcester, I'd be like, yeah, dude, even though that city sucks, it's my city, baby. It's just fun to, like, it's a big American city, but it's, like, you know, not the biggest one. So, like, you have a little bit of an attachment to it. You're like, oh, yeah, that's the Philly show. It works. I don't know. I'm not a writer. This change of scenery worked. FX picked up Sunny for 7 episodes with a budget of $450,000 each, which sounds like a lot until you realize that this was less than a third of the average per episode for American sitcoms. A successful show like The Big Bang Theory had a budget of $10 million per episode by its 11th season, which is f***ing insane. What are they doing with that money? I guess they're paying the actors because they're all f***ing famous by that point, but Jesus Christ. The 3-camera f***ing sitcom. I could do it. FX, give me some money. I could do it so much better. Not better than Sunny. Better than Big Bang Theory. Just give me someone give me money. I want to make a show. I have no way. I don't know if I should do that. But even during Sunny's prime, with a switch of HD cameras and bigger salaries, the show was still shot for $2 million an episode. And they did that because the initial run of the 7 episodes of Sunny had awful ratings. So they were like, we need somebody in here, we need a celebrity. But the first season's ratings probably had something to do with the episodes, like Charlie has cancer, Charlie wants an abortion, or Charlie gets molested. They didn't give a If it's 2005 and you're flipping through digital cable channels in Utah just reading the episode descriptions, that would probably send you to hell as a Mormon. But the network wanted to keep the fledgling show, but not without adding a bigger name to draw an audience. DeVito was a friendly with the execs at FX, and they sent him some tapes and asked if he was interested. DeVito, and especially his kids, were f***ing with the concept. It's fun being a piece of shit. But I do want to make it clear, DeVito had absolutely no reason to take this gig. He had already done TV with his iconic role in the classic 70s sitcom Taxi, and he was now a major star with roles like Batman Returns and Matilda. I mean, Danny DeVito definitely has Arnold Schwarzenegger's number, because he did a bunch of movies with him, like Get Shorty, I think? Maybe I'm getting that wrong. What was the one? The Twins movie. Was it called Twins? I don't know. But he risked it all to accept the role of Frank Reynolds. And the ratings shot up. A little bit. A tidbit. It wasn't that big of a difference. Bigwigs at Fox still wanted to cancel the show, so Landgraf had to find a new revenue stream to justify its cost, so he convinced Fox to release Sunny on DVD. And holy sh**, it did well. It didn't just do well, it was the third best-selling DVDs that Fox ever released. And that was just behind The Simpsons and Family Guy. So, I mean, you can't compete with those two. That's fucking amazing. Once they started accounting for college students, the show's ratings jumped up 24%. And Sunny was included on Hulu in 2008 when it launched, back when Hulu was free and perfect, and oh my god, it was so good. I'm so sorry you kids didn't get that vibe, but oh my god, you just logged into a website, you could see you could watch South Park for free. It was crazy. But that helped it reach an even bigger audience, and finally, the gag was getting recognized. Usually sitcoms deal in broad character archetypes, but ground their show in some sense of commonality. In Friends, they're all friends. Makes sense. In The Office, you're in a goddamn office. It's all coming together. And Sunny did the same thing. Kinda, a little bit. You would think that the link between all the characters would be working in the same bar, but what unites them is actually the fact is that they're all narcissistic sociopaths and raging alcoholics. You know, like The Office. Which, once again, I can't overstate. It is insane how this show is a cultural touchstone. With very few exceptions, everyone is despicable. And they're always doing disgusting things. I know I don't gotta tell you guys this, but like, Jesus Christ, this show is insane. To be clear, this is like one of my favorite shows. Don't be commenting that I don't get it. I absolutely get it. But that doesn't change the fact that these could very well be the most depraved cast of characters ever assembled on TV. We're just so lucky that the show is incredibly funny. Without that, the entire runtime of this show is basically a hate crime. Honestly, I think after watching the show for 20 years, we've all kind of just gotten used to how f***ed up they are. So I just thought it would be fun to take a look at these characters in the harsh light of day and really dive into how terrible these people are. Up first is Charlie. Back when I started making TikToks, people said I acted like Charlie, and that would hurt my feelings a little bit because he is the quintessential dumb guy. He is so dumb that he's almost lovable. Almost is the key word there. He's illiterate, yet possibly a musical prodigy. The song he writes for Patty's Pub is probably one of the greatest original songs I've ever heard in a sitcom. I just love the episode where he sits down at the piano and the first thing he says is, "Oh man, keyboards just make sense to me, man. You know? I just don't think I have enough time to even scratch the surface of Charlie's absurdity." He's obsessed with cheese, lives in squalor with Frank, he's an expert on bird law, is afraid to venture outside of Philadelphia, and also he's responsible for every dirty task in the bar, like beating rats to death, and that the gang deems that Charlie works. But his obsession with the waitress might be his biggest defining trait. Ironically, in real life, Charlie Day is married to the actress who plays the waitress, Mary Elizabeth Ellis. They met while filming an episode of Reno 911, another show that I should do a f***ing episode on because that is one of the most underrated shows ever made on television. But on Sunny, Charlie's unreturned love drives him to stalk her. Along the way, he pretty much ruins her life, and then in the episode, spoilers, when he finally gets a chance to be with her, he fucking ditches her. He's a pretty big piece of shit, but nowhere near as big of a piece of shit as Dennis, the maybe serial killer of the show. Although I think in later seasons he has been confirmed to be a serial killer, but we'll get into that. Dennis started out as an overblown version of a narcissist, one obsessed with his green 1993 Range Rover and his pecs. I mean, when the gang goes back to their high school reunion, he even refers to himself as the Golden God. So he's just like the human embodiment of narcissism. But as the show progresses, we slowly discover Dennis's ego is a bit dangerous to others. He would go to the ends of the earth to avenge a perceived slight, like when he got revenge on an environmentalist who called him a poser by banging his girlfriend and having a tree cut down. We also learn that he keeps a recorded tape of every single one of his sexual encounters, which I believe is illegal, and that those encounters are protected by consent he manufactured with fabricated texts. And it gets darker than that, which is surprising. Once again, a fun sitcom is what this show is. He has an entire system for coercing and breaking potential sexual mates, and he's often mumbling about the implication when trying to seduce women. And his disrespect of women runs absolutely deep, if not embodied by his sister, Dee. Sweet Dee. Genuinely one of the most underrated characters on this show. At first, Dee was going to play the straight man to the rest of the gang's hijinks, and you could see how early on they built her backstory that almost garners the audience's sympathy. It seems her behavior stems from her childhood trauma. Dee and Dennis had a tough childhood, which is very funny, because Frank Reynolds is very funny. But the show frequently mentions the back brace she had to wear in high school, and the nickname it earned her, the Aluminium Monster. Or aluminum. Whatever, I was getting British for a second. Her insecurities lead to insane plot points where she agrees to go to prom with a high school student or meet a soldier online under the screen name Desert Rose. But any sympathy the audience might have for Dee is obliterated by the dumb she does all the time. For example, she ruins the life of a priest who had a crush on her in high school. Rickety Cricket, the fellow who has sex with dogs, remember him? She tricks a male stripper into grinding on his daughter and holds a funeral for a fake baby to get out of an IRS audit. And it was while filming the scenes like this that she stole the heart of her co-star, Rob McElhenney. The two got married in real life in 2008, which is crazy because originally she wanted to jump his bones. He was like, no way, sister, I literally am the writer of this show and I would get in a lot of trouble. And she was like, Dad, have sex with me. And he was like, all right. And then they kept it a secret for a long time, and finally the rest of the cast are like, are you guys fucking? And he's like, yeah. Then they got married. Fun story. But it's a little ironic seeing as Rob plays a very closeted, no longer closeted gay man. Mac didn't start out gay. He was originally an overblown version of the toxic, aggressively hetero male. You know, the type who always seems to be compensating for something. That was literally his whole character point. This led to hilarious scenarios, like when Mac made a flyer to recruit cool guys to chill at the gang's party mansion, and the flyers happened to look like penises. I still feel like it looked like a flexing muscle, but what to each their own. Or when he hit on a babe at the gym, only to find out she was trans, which led him to secretly stringing her along while waiting for her to get gender confirmation surgery, which that's a lot to break down. I don't know where that falls on the spectrum of woke. But eventually, the tone of his bravado shifts, and it becomes clear that Mac is overly compensating and that he's obviously a closeted gay man. And that he's probably most likely absolutely in love with his roommate Dennis. A very fun plot point, but it's kind of sad to watch. But his devout Catholicism kept him sexually repressed for years. And even after he came out, he kept his dogmatic views on religion. Mac's sexuality, though, isn't the only thing that morphs over the entirety of the show, because his body is like a goddamn elastic band. According to McElhenney, he wanted to make fun of how TV characters seem to get more attractive the longer a show runs, so he did the opposite. Between the seasons of 6 and 7, he gained 60 pounds. And originally I thought it was a fat suit, but he actually got fat for this, which is crazy. And what's even crazier is he wanted the entire cast to do it with him, and they were like, we're not gonna fucking sacrifice our health for this show. And he's like, pussies. And then he was drinking chocolate ice cream melted mixed with olive oil to gain that weight. Seriously. Insane. But then, somewhat ironically, he shed all the weight for the next season, and then he started getting really buff. Like, really, really buff. He looks like this now, which is fucking insane. But I really miss Fat Mac. I wanted to hug Fat Mac, and he wanted that rum ham so god bad. And we have Frank to thank for rum ham. A fan favorite pick, Frank Reynolds. When DeVito joined the show for season 2, he was Dennis and Dee's rich, absent father. He wanted to cut loose from his stiff corporate life and force himself into the gang's awful schemes. He took a particular liking to the way Charlie lived, viewing it as absolute freedom, so he moved into Charlie's tiny apartment, and the two have lived in absolute horrifying squalor for 20 years together. I don't know, I also think they're in love. It doesn't really make sense. You know, it doesn't have to make sense. It didn't take long before Frank was crafting his own schemes, like turning the basement of Patty's Pub into a sweatshop, pimping out his son Dennis at a country club, or waterboarding his daughter Dee in a urinal. He even tried to serve Charlie's legitimate father in Ireland a meatball made of poop. Guys, I mean, at this point, you understand the vibe. And again, I think it's worth mentioning that he has Arnold Schwarzenegger's number. Like, this guy is extremely famous, and they made him get completely naked, oiled up, and climb out of the back of a leather couch, and it is the most up scene I've ever seen on television. Danny DeVito has the body of an egg. There's absolutely no reason for him to go this hard this late in his career, but bless him for doing it. He probably saved Sunny from cancellation, and in the progress, he probably made some of the most iconic television in the early 2000s. Now, there probably isn't one single episode of Always Sunny that hasn't been controversial to at least somebody. That's just the nature of the show. It's supposed to be offensive because it's about bad people. Now, does that premise allow them to get away with more than they should be getting away with? Probably, yeah. I like the show. I'm not trying to clutch my pearls here, but Frank pretending to have AIDS just to skip the line at a water park always makes me feel really bad for laughing. Then again, comedy that pushes boundaries literally never ages well because it pushes boundaries, and you don't know what boundaries are going to be unable to be pushed when people take offense to it in the future. But some of the edgiest episodes of Sunny might not really deserve the benefit of the doubt. For example, one that even when it came out, I thought to myself, holy guys, and it's The Gang Turns Black. And I don't really need to go into this one. In the episode, the gang watches The Wiz during a thunderstorm and their electric blanket shorts out. Somehow, this turns them into black people. Whatever, you. Maybe because they're watching the movie with a character named Old Black Man? I don't know. That's weird to say out loud, so let me explain. You see, the black guy is there because Mac and Dennis lost a bet with Frank that they could survive living in the suburbs, and their punishment was having a black homeless man sleep in their bed. Whoa. Haven't said that out loud. That is actually really bad. That's the power of this show. Anyway, like The Wiz, the episode is a musical, and throughout the show, the Sunny cast sings about their newfound experiences with racism and prejudice as black people. And of course, Frank doesn't really get it, and he goes around saying, "I'm gonna say the N-word." Which is really funny to me. The episode ends with Charlie, who is in the body of a young black boy, getting shot by police while he reaches for his toy train. I think overall the episode is really smart and the music is actually really catchy, but as a white fella, I feel wholly unqualified to weigh in on this. So all my black followers, please, down below, let a brother know. Not a brother, sorry, I just say brother that... I'm not good at this stuff. And I mean, this satire is definitely coming from a good place, but in the racially charged few years post George Floyd, they were definitely taking a swing with this one. Let's just move away from the race stuff real quick. I'm getting physically sweaty. How about Sweet Dee's dating a R-worded person? This is no better. In Sweet Dee's dating a R-worded person, Dee starts dating a local rapper. Because of his chill affection, the gang thinks he's, you know, mentally challenged. Dee spends the entire episode testing him to see if he is, and eventually the rapper discovers what she's up to. Finally, at one of his shows, he disses her on stage, calls her the R-word, and drops the mic. Well, I think it's pretty obvious what's wrong with this one a little bit. It's not just the slur. I think this came out in a time where we were slinging that word around like it was nothing. I was there. I was 2000 whatever. I was in middle school. It's just what you did, okay? But the bigger issue with the episode is that most of the humor is at the expense of stereotypes surrounding mental disabilities. And even though the idea is that Dee and the gang are despicable people and flippant about mental health, the jokes are always at the expense of the disabilities. So the comedy does eventually end up just punching down, which you never want to do in terms of the world of comedy. Sometimes you want to do it, but you got to be good at it, and this wasn't that good at it. But I did laugh at the episode, so what the f am I talking about? But yeah, this is one of the episodes that is still available to stream, and nothing bad happens to any of the characters. So I guess everyone thought this one was okay. But also it's worth noting that before streaming, you could miss a show and never see it again. And I think that might have saved Sunny's ass a few times. And speaking of saving someone's ass, or not saving someone's ass, we're gonna talk about Charlie Gets Molested. Now we're talking about molestation. Cool. Demonetization is almost certain on this one, so extra tug, please, for the love of Christ. I need Christmas gift money. Or I bought the Christmas gifts, but I need the money back because, oh my god. So this episode revolves around the fact that the gang's old high school gym teacher, who is played by literally the principal from Saved by the Bell, is on trial for molesting students. Charlie vehemently denies that he got molested by his teacher, but the whole gang says, probably not, brother, you got molested crazy. Meanwhile, Mac is upset that he wasn't molested. This show's so good. So he actually goes over to the coach's house dressed like he's a high school gym class student, and when the coach finally asks him, "What are you doing?" Mac replies suggestively, "What do you want me to do?" Oh my god! So yeah, from gaslighting someone into thinking they were molested to actively trying to get molested, this is truly f***ed up. And I can't believe more people aren't upset about this episode. Once again, it is f***ing hilarious, but very touchy way to handle this. But it's also just another example of how they got away with murder because the show was so funny. I mean, molestation is almost never funny, but Matt trying to seduce his old high school teacher absolutely is. The episode was originally intended to be even worse.
Well, I would like to point out one of the things about that episode was that was the first time we ran up against some real resistance, because that episode was originally written to be not about a gym teacher, but about a Catholic priest. And they got a little uncomfortable with the idea of saying that a Catholic priest was molesting you guys, even though in the episode he isn't molesting any of the kids, and even though it was true, because the Catholic priests were, and still are.
Then we have the Dennis system. I don't need to break down the Dennis system. It's, if you don't know about the Dennis system, you don't know this show. And if you don't know the show, watch the show. But there was one thing this gang couldn't get away with when filming this show, and it was blackface. They did a lot of blackface, gang. They did a lot of it. In 2020, 5 episodes with racist makeup were removed from Hulu. Which, I mean, come on, guys. 5 episodes? You get 1, maybe. I get that it's a satirical, edgy show, but blackface in the 21st century, just, I mean, come on. I mean, this is not one of those it was a different time scenarios. When the first episode came out, blackface was not chill. Blackface is a practice that we've known is bad for a long time. We knew it was bad halfway through the 20th century when we stopped producing minstrel shows. In fact, it's so bad that we willfully neglect the fact that minstrel shows were a dominant form of American entertainment for 75 years. And the fact that there's not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 different episodes of they're doing race face, it's just crazy to me. So why were these episodes quietly banned without any big uproar? Well, again, it's because Sonny gets away with a lot because it's so f***ing funny. And once again, it's never intentionally ill-willed. Like, the whole thing is they do blackface because they're f***ing morons. Like, that's what you're laughing at them, not the characters they're trying to portray. But blackface is blackface, gang. I mean, Jesus Christ. But there was also a very weird period where blackface did kind of make a comeback. Remember Tropic Thunder? Remember 30 Rock? There was 3 episodes where they did blackface in 30 Rock. Scrubs used blackface 3 times throughout its whole run. And even The Office and Community pushed it with black makeup to the point where they had to remove content from streamers. And yeah, the majority of these were making fun of people who would do blackface. But it's just, it's up in the air. I don't know. Once again, I cannot comment on this. But like, I don't know. That people don't seem to f***ing like it. You know what I'm saying? We've actually had tons of famous people don blackface well past the point of it being okay. You know what? There's actually a lot of people who've done blackface. And you know what that means? It's time to do my first blackface speed run ever. I'm gonna name every single not black person. I'm gonna name every single celebrity that you thought was cool, but they actually did blackface. Here we go. Fred Armisen, Dan Aykroyd, Jack Black, Zach Braff, Danson, Neil Diamond, Robert Downey Jr., Jimmy Fallon, Judy Garland, Bill Hader, John Hammond, Joni Mitchell, Lauren Olivier, oh my God, Lauren Oliver, Frank Sinatra, Grace Slick, Howard Stern, Shirley Temple, Tracy Ullman, Gene Wilder, and even motherfucking Betty White. Why are so many people doing blackface? All right, well, I was gonna ask how Sonny managed to survive so many cases of blackface, but I think I have my answer. It seems like everyone in Hollywood has done blackface. I didn't understand that at all. But I guess if Justin Trudeau is doing it, why not a bunch of drunks in Philly? Okay, so fine. The gang didn't always get it right. Actually, they never got it right, but that is the whole point. At the end of the day, the show isn't criticizing Charlie D, Dennis, Mac, and Frank. They're critiquing the culture that allows these individuals to exist. And that's the satirical edge that's allowed Sonny to thrive for 20 years. That and the fact that it's incredibly funny. Let me know your favorite episode of Sonny down below. Mine personally is the one where Frank almost drowned. There's an episode where Frank almost drowned behind the scenes and they were like on a cruise ship. That's one of my favorite episodes. New videos every Saturday and Wednesday. Like, comment, and subscribe. And shout out the Extra Tuglets for paying me $4 a month and they get a new video every week. And it's usually pretty raunchy. You get Satan talking to you, or you guys write me questions and I answer them. And you get your name at the end of the video. And there's probably a deal going on. I don't know. Go check. We're doing deals now. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good one. Also, people used to say I looked like Rob, or I acted like Rob. It was just the whole cast except for Dennis. I pretty much was told I acted like, which I didn't like. It made me feel unoriginal. If you think I act like one of these f***ers, let me know in the comments down below. I'm not racist. Bye-bye.
You value your food, fresh food, quality that speaks for itself. And at Lidl, we do too. It's why you can save £30 on this shop compared to Asda. So stock the fridge, take to the kitchen, and bring more value to your day every day. Lidl, more to value.
Wedding hats. Lots of handshaking. A baby in a waistcoat crying throughout the vows. Confetti. Themed tables. Awkward best man speech. The +1? People dancing in a circle. Ruined rental suit. Sometimes in life you just know what you're getting. Like a luxury bed and a great night's sleep. You know what you're getting with Premier Inn.
Let me guess. You watched another 4 disturbing documentaries? How about you just, get a fucking job? I mean, can we just talk about the political and economic state of the world right now? Can we perhaps Pokemon go to the polls?
Get them to have Pokemon go to the...
I'm sorry, I'm starting this one off a bit more cheeky than usual. That's because I'm officially partnered with them. Why yes, Cheeky are the best bars of soap you'll ever use in your musty life. Cheeky is easy on sensitive skin, which I have. So I tested that theory, and guess what? Worked like a charm. Not only that, I realized, wow, this also smells really good compared to the bar of soap that I was currently using to not explode my skin, which smelled like granite. They have plenty of amazing scents. And if you want to save yourself some scents, you can use code Mr. Gigi always at Cheeky for 10% off. Might even catch you at the Black Friday sale, which is 20% off. But I digress. You see me? Am I a part of the gang? Should I be sad that half of these guys are dead? I watched 4 disturbing documentaries. They are My Wife, My Abuser, The Perfect Neighbor, Don't Come Upstairs,
And the cannibal that walked free.
ignoring the tone of the intro, yes. They're fucked up, they're sad. I'm gonna start us off with my personal favorite of the bunch. Please enjoy, I suppose. Holy shit, so many emotions. I laughed, I cried, I wanted to punch an old lady in the face. And that was all before I hit play. This documentary is super interesting because it is mostly comprised of body cam footage, just showing the events of a dispute between neighbors. There is no narrator, there are no traditional testimonials. It isn't really until the end of the doc that it starts to take on a more traditional approach to convey information to us. And I think I saw someone talk about how this new way of storytelling through body cam is going to flip the industry on its head. The new documentaries are gonna be crazy. And this doc is great, don't get me wrong. But if you spent any lick of time on YouTube, there are thousands of videos detailing horrific crimes using mostly the body cam footage that channel obtains. A very popular example could be the channel Explore With Us. Cops discover bodies in woman's trunk during traffic stop. Cops make horrific discovery in woman's soup pot. The key difference here being that lack of a narrator. I would say most, if not all, of the channels that post this type of content narrate to set the scene, bridge gaps, or deliver their analysis of what's being shown. How the perpetrator's acting, what they might be feeling psychologically. Oh, he twitched his arm, that's how you can tell that he's fucking guilty. I think that specifically is what shines with The Perfect Neighbor. Being forced to not only keep us informed, but also involved with only the body cam footage and what sounds like body cam audio you have on hand. And before I break it down, I do want to say, I think it's worth the watch. It's on Netflix. It's frustrating, anger-inducing, tragic, all at the same time. So, Susan Lawrence lives in a neighborhood full of families and kiddos that want to be outside, play basketball, football, tag, all that fun stuff. She doesn't like any of that. She will apparently yell at the kids, argue with the parents, and call the police repeatedly to complain about them. She really only has one fragile leg to stand on, and it's the potential trespassing of her property line, which is rather close to her property. The grass beyond it belongs to another man who has fully okayed the kids to play there, which they often do. Now, the easiest way to describe this woman, even though I don't like using this word, she's a Karen. To all the women named Karen in the audience watching, I stand with you. I'd also be pissed if my birth name became a meme because of a couple batshit ladies. Luckily, nobody with the name Michael has ever done anything wrong or controversial. Editor, there's no need to verify that. Let's move on. We see about 7 documented incidents from February 2022 to June 2023. I'll summarize a bit, starting with the first we see from February 2022, where Susan here has a funny way of describing events as well as just sneaking in whatever extra accusations she can get in when speaking to police. She says that she was attacked by Ajika, or AJ, one of the neighboring moms. They apparently had gotten into an argument involving the no trespassing signs, and apparently AJ just yanked it out of the ground and beamed it at her. Just running start disc golf shit. Cool now hat throw. Got her right between the eyes, unconscious, 8 hours. The birds flying around just subsided. It sounds like AJ just grabbed it and tossed it. Or at the very least, vaguely tossed it in her direction as a nice little fuck you. It says that the sign hit her shin. Is that textbook assault? I think, but nobody else is able to verify Susan's statement, so it's just written up as a battery, nothing to do here. August 2022. We see Susan trying to school the police on the law, which is always a green flag. And listen, every individual cop that shows up has a different reaction to Susan's antics. But I absolutely love the ones who just so clearly know what she is and don't give a single shit. Those kids are loud, and the parents clearly aren't watching them. Yeah, it's a neighborhood full of kids, lady. They hang out, they do that. According to her, she called them all R-words and went back inside. I'm sure that'll quiet them down. So most incidents don't really differ all that much. Susan has an allegation or two, the cops can't do shit about it because it either didn't happen, or all the neighbors hate her and won't let her gain any credibility anyways by saying, oh yeah, no, she's actually kind of right. Here's an example. Susan's truck alarm kept going.
Brand new MyProtein products have just dropped exclusive to Iceland, packed with flavour, protein and value. Right now, mix and match and save with our amazing offers.
Off, and one of the neighbors quickly wrangled up the kids to prove a point. And lo and behold, the alarm kept going off. Susan was just randomly setting it off to try and pin it on the kids like they're fucking with her truck. She apparently has an air horn that she'll use. Sometimes when she drives off, she'll just gun her engine. She records the kids to get evidence, I suppose. But any actual evidence of a crime is never brought up from her phone. It's more so Susan just zooming in as the kids yell, "Why are you recording us?" Like, yeah, that'll get the feds on your side. Hey, look at these 8-year-olds I recorded from the inside of my home as I breathe heavily. Oh my God, this woman needs our help. March 2023 is our first incident completely unrelated to the neighbors. A property owner calls cops after some lunatic rammed his gate, which he clarifies, no one's supposed to be back there anyway. But the last person who went back there and was stuck behind the gate, they looked at the sign on the gate, called the number on the sign, his number. He came and he let him out. Susan got back there somehow and said, fuck that, I know what those signs are capable of. Big owies. That was a good fucking slap. Ow? Relax, buddy. Jesus Christ. This officer also quickly loses his patience as Susan yells at him after he knocks. 1 minute! She barely wants to talk to him. She goes back inside even though he needs her to listen to her rights being read. She refuses to speak with him, and he's like, all right, bet. That guy wants to press charges, by the way. I'm gonna get some Chipotle. But she then pleads with him to stay and talk so she can explain her side. But I guess because she already refused to speak to him after reading her rights, she can't change her mind? Which, by the way, is that real? Is that a thing? He says he can't use anything she's gonna say at this point. Is that true? No takesies backsies? What if Miranda's wrong? So I think I can confidently say this part. Susan's racist. We hear allegations that she had told the kids that the field isn't the Underground Railroad and that she has straight up just called them the N-word. And even though she's terrible, I still just thought, there's no way she actually said those things. There's no way, right? And we later get some clarification on this, but let me not get ahead of myself. I'll quickly go over the next two incidents. She said one of the kids was trying to lift their dog into the bed of her truck. I don't even get that from either side. Like, got her, I don't know. Then she says they threw a burnt trespassing sign on her property to send a message, but there's no evidence of the arson, just the burnt sign. She's like, check it out, it's right here. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, I could do that. To be fair, it is a lot of he said, she said. Susan makes all these allegations, and then the kids will tell people she's flashed a gun at us before. Which, listen, I'm not gonna pretend like kids can't be little shits, right? Or they can't lie. But kids are also prone to being too honest. You hear it through every interaction that you're watching via the body cam. They'll just randomly jump in and say things unprompted because they want to share their experience. Kids can be sneaky, but for this big of a group to congregate to get their story straight for police when they don't know when Susan has summoned them seems rather far-fetched. I'm inclined to believe the kids as we move through the incidents. June 2nd, 2023. Susan had a spat with one of the kids outside, and apparently they just left their shit on her property. So she tosses their roller skates at them, and apparently takes one of their tablets. The child calls for his older brother. Apparently Susan went out there swinging her umbrella around, calling them jackasses. And since she's holding their tablet hostage, they get their mom. Susan calls the police, stating there are several kids outside, and she is fearing for her life. Saying the kids are saying that they're gonna beat her up and get someone else to kill her. Police tell her to obviously avoid that person, keep her windows and doors locked, and that an officer is on the way. Ajika, Izzy's mom, the boy who had the roller skates thrown at him, approaches Susan's slide door. Bang, bang, bang. Asking about her son's tablet. Moves to her front door. Bang, bang, bang. Come outside, bitch. Bang. Susan shoots through her front door and strikes AJ in her shoulder. And the following sequence of footage is the hardest to watch. We get a doorbell cam of Izzy screaming for someone to call 911 because his mom was just shot. Some kids start going outside, but nobody knows if the shooting is over, so they desperately try to keep everyone wrangled in while also running to attend AJ. Nobody knows what's happening. They just know that AJ just got shot. Susan calls the police again, this time telling them that she shot someone through her door. They're able to get a faint pulse from AJ as they rush to perform CPR as her kids are yelling for their mom. They get her into an ambulance and they call the kid's father to come to the scene. This entire portion has been chaotic. It's horrifying to see because we're right there in the midst of it all. And the worst hits us soon after when they pull the father to the side and we don't hear the officer, but he immediately breaks down. Ajika did not make it. And now their father has to break the news to his kids that their mother won't be coming back home, as Susan gets driven away in cuffs repeating, "I thought she was gonna kill me." This part is just brutal to watch. I understand why it's included, but it's just a jab to the heart as the father's breaking the news and the kids refuse to believe what they're hearing. The neighborhood one by one become privy to the news and each begin to mourn, attempt to comfort the kids. The father has to call Ajika's mom and tell her what happened. The next day, we get a look into Susan's interrogation, and this is unfortunately not a clean-cut arrest right off the bat. Susan is claiming that AJ was banging on the door, thinking she might gain entry and kill her. She says she feared for her life, so that's why she shot. Stand your ground law. Although her story immediately sucks, and I think it's important to point out when someone lies about the little shit, those should be the softballs, but she can't even be honest about those because everything she has said and done makes her look terrible. For example, the claim that she was swinging around the umbrella at the kids. She denies everything, by the way. It just kind of goes like, okay, well, did you have an umbrella? Yes. Okay, why? No, I thought it was raining. Why? What, did you not check? Like your big ass blinds? Were you going somewhere? Were you going to your car? Like, why were you going to hold an umbrella as you yelled at the kids? It's a dumbass lie by a dumbass person. So remember that racist thing I mentioned earlier? They ask her, and I don't know if they actually have it, but they asked, is there any reason why someone would have a video of you yelling the N-word? And she realizes that she can't lie here if someone did unknowingly have footage of that. And the fact that she wasn't even entirely sure tells me she's done it a lot. But she doesn't hesitate. I mean, it might have slipped. Okay. So just to reiterate, this isn't like you accidentally cussing and dropping an F-bomb in front of the kids, a little whoopsie daisies. You're actively calling them that, and she somehow, and she keeps going. Like you remember long ago when Tana defended herself by saying, "I thought that word just meant friend." Susan does a similar thing, except it somehow becomes more racist. She says, "Well, I was always taught that the N-word meant you were being unlawful, dirty, generally unpleasant." They actually do escort her back home at one point and put her up in a hotel because it's not safe for her, and she's technically not charged right now. They're still sorting things out, and this obviously causes an uproar in the community because Susan is free, and even worse, has a chance to remain free. But this is where Susan's story hits a wall. They ask her to recount exactly what happened before she shot. She tells us she called police after the kids were outside saying they were going to get their mom because she had their tablet. She then says AJ was beating on her doors for 20 to 30 seconds, and then it got quiet. She decided to go wash her hands for whatever fucking reason, and then the pounding started back up. When asked why she didn't call back police at this time, once the pounding started or resumed, she said she couldn't find her phone, even though she's been attached to the hip of the fucking thing, blowing up police and recording the kids. So the pounding has resumed. She's looking for her phone, and she says this time, AJ must have been banging on her doors for 2 to 5 minutes, saying she's gonna kill her. And fearing for her life and no sign of officers, she shot through the door. Keep in mind, she also says 10 minutes after her initial call is when the banging began. Now the calls are obviously logged. So that first initial call started at 8:54 p.m. That call disconnected at 8:59 p.m. According to Susan, 10 minutes later, the banging begins for 20 to 30 seconds, pauses, resumes for 2 to 5 minutes, and Susan then shoots and calls the police again, telling them what she's done. You clearly know she's exaggerating, like we know the logs say otherwise, but it somehow still made my fucking jaw drop. The first call disconnected at 8:59 p.m., and she called saying that she shot her at 9:01. So it apparently took her 2 minutes to lose her phone, wash her hands, fear for her life, grab her gun, shoot, magically find her phone, and dial 911. As she painted the picture of AJ relentlessly beating on her door for minutes. Not to mention, they also ask, if we look through your computer or phone, will we see something, about searches of self-defense or stand your ground law? And she says, oh, heavens no. I might have searched that years ago. They then respond with, well, I think you know why we're asking. And they don't directly say it, but I'm assuming that means that they saw that she was searching recently that law, knowing exactly what she wanted to do. She wanted to piss the kids off, have them get their mom, and find an excuse to shoot her and walk away free. They do tell her that she will be charged with manslaughter, and as a deputy arrives to take her to the slammer with no bail, she refuses to go. Big surprise. And I was really pulling for a tussle on this one, but she does unfortunately later get up of her own volition. The public is...
plant this flag. No turning back now. This is how to dispose of this. Come on, we have reached the ambush position. Dig in. We need that bomb triggered for optimal yield. Orbital scan estimates the bulk of the swarm will not be in position for a while yet. Keep your heads and get it done. The enemy seeks to consume this place and us it is out, Lord, and ready for ignition. That should hold the creatures at bay. The bulk of the swarm is continuing along the protected path. Continue holding. The refinery is no longer secure. Some controls are active once more. Halfway there, brothers. Keep it up. Magazine out! Magazine in! Swarm moving around position. Ground is seizing. Now reap the blame. Xenos Devourer marked. Fire trap initiated. The swarm has almost fully committed. Be ready for my mark. All for my no brains. Reloading. Gun is empty. You are clear to detonate. Cook those rotten bastards. Understood, Command. Readying the charge. Let these flames be a beacon and a warning. Tyranid biosigns down 90% unfallen. Swarm annihilation confirmed. Excellent work. Move to extract. Extraction complete. Returning to orbit.
Relieved to hear that she finally has been arrested, but they still go to trial. And I didn't even recognize this ghoul. But yes, she is guilty. of manslaughter and sentenced to 25 years in prison. And as much as I enjoy the mini docs on YouTube with body cam footage, this is obviously just another level, obvious budget difference. But it's really well done and just an insane story beginning to end. It is absolutely disturbing to see the tragedy and heartbreak front and center. But yes, I do very much recommend this one. Next doc.
I'm a big fan of today's sponsor. Anyway, and be left unsatisfied. Also, their Protein Plus options help me keep the gains fed. They'll ask me what meals I want for my sponsorship. I've already said this, it doesn't matter anymore, guys. You can almost certainly do no wrong. I recently tried their garlic rosemary chicken breast fusilli. I don't know how to say it. It's quick, delicious, low calorie, high protein, exactly what I need. Conveniently shipped to your door on your schedule. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code MrGGFB50 to get 50% off your first Factor box, plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code MrGGFB50. at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. And thank you, Factor, for continuing to sponsor the videos.
What a weird doc. I still don't even really understand. Okay.
Issei Sagawa is the Kobe cannibal. He's this very strange little man that should have spent a lot of time in prison and should not have lived the life he lived. In this documentary, we not only discuss his crime, but the aftermath and speak to him personally about it all. Now, there are a lot of stories I've discussed in this series where justice did not prevail. That's gonna happen again right now, I apologize, but we'll somehow get an even worse ending than that. This one just bothers me. We spend too much time with this man. I want to insult him a lot, but he is dead now, so. Open season. Now don't you speak ill of the dead. I'll speak Illmatic. Drop an album. Let's begin. Now, as Issei grew up, he became the two very things that influence bad decisions the most. Hungry and horny, and his brain fucked up the wiring. So the streets of Japan now had a pervy cannibal on the loose, who was oddly discriminatory in his crimes. He fantasized over Western beauty. He wanted blonde hair, blue eyes. He admired them so much that he wanted to eat them. And this doesn't really sound like a thing he was actively stopping himself from doing, because he pretty much bucket listed that shit. He was just waiting for a sign. And that sign came when he was 23, and a German girl moved into his neighborhood. I don't really know what the hell his plan was exactly. Like, I know what he wanted to do, but I feel like we skipped some steps in the planning stage. So he goes into her room at night with a mask and an umbrella. And he doesn't want to kill her, not like my description of his kit made you think that anyway, but all he wanted to do, and I'm not joking, was eat her ass. And before the "he just like me for reals" hit the comment section, he wanted to literally devour a piece of her butt. Once again, don't know the plan. I'm not sure how he was gonna chef that one up, but the bozo ends up bumping into her, wakes her up, and I thought surely this is the point of the umbrella. But he instead tries to run away, and the girl actually grabs his stupid little ass and overpowers him, and he ends up charged for attempted rape. Now then, few things. Was this German girl just strong as hell? Maybe, but I have not informed you yet that Issei towers at a whopping 4'9". So this girl got up and snatched this little man up with umbrella and all and got him booked. We're told that he's 4'9" because he almost died in a premature birth, which is like Kawhi's shot bouncing out. So he was very fragile, very small, very ugly, like a small monkey. Those are his words, by the way.
Very ugly, like a small monkey.
But anyway, he's charged. Issei's father pays the German girl, I'm assuming a lot of money, and the charges get dropped, and Mary Poppins walks free. Confused at what the hell's wrong with his son, he sends him to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist concludes that he's very dangerous. Not sure what came from that. Issei moves out 5 years later. He goes to school in Paris, and he's now surrounded by the very thing he has craved since day one. And this pisses me off. This guy sucks. 1981, he meets Renee Hartfeld. He's instantly attracted to her. She's a fellow exchange student. And unfortunately, she was one of the very few people that gave this dork the time of day, making an effort to talk to him, even inviting him to a class night out. She thought she was just making friends in school, but Issei saw destiny before his very eyes. Now, he does talk very fondly about her, right? But we're told he was so deeply in love with her, and he thought the most he could do to love her was to eat her. And if that's some dumb shit he said, sure. But I don't really like to subscribe to that notion, which, by the way, 30% of you aren't subscribed. Like, was he deeply in love with that German girl? No. I think he tried attacking someone in a stealthy manner, failed horribly, so he never tried that again. This poor girl gave him attention, treated him nicely. She even spoke highly of him, so he had more confidence in devising a plan to attack her. I don't know, I just hate quasi-dressing up this guy. Oh, he just loved her too much. His heart grew 3 sizes that day. Fuck this guy. He kept up with her, planning her eventual murder. He invites her over to help him with some German literature because she's fluent, and while she's reading with her back turned, he shoots her with a rifle that he purchased months earlier. He then describes carving into her, eating her flesh, and he has sex with her corpse, spends another 48 hours with her body beyond that, before he tries to dump 2 large bloody suitcases in a lake. So we're told that people are able to see this small man struggling to carry 2 large suitcases, which Yeah. But then we're told that he takes a nap on a bench? Like the little fella got gassed mid-drag? Like, keep in mind, people can see him at this location. I think he knows that, too. So he falls asleep, wakes up to an old guy snooping in one of the suitcases. He opens it, sees it, screams, and then Issei just walks off. What are these stories? Is the doc lying to me, or is just leaving out like pivotal details? The police find him soon after. He confesses to everything. There are photographs. He still has flesh in his fridge, leftovers sprawled out. There's no denying that he did this. But apparently in France, for every criminal case, there's at least a psychological and a psychiatric forensic examination. His takes over a year to complete, and once the paperwork's in, he's deemed insane and unfit to stand trial, and he's thrown into a Paris mental hospital. And that's not even the bad part, because his dad swoops in, gets him a very expensive lawyer, who convinces Paris to instead send him to a psychiatric hospital in Japan so he can get better and take it off the books for the French taxpayers. Paris agrees and says, okay, but on one condition. He can't come back to Paris. We'll give you Luca, but we also want Maxi Kleber. Sure. So he flies back to Japan, and I don't want you to underestimate how much money and power his dad has, by the way. His dad gets the hospital to transport him off the flight so the press can all see his son presumably go where he will spend the rest of his days. The thing is, he's technically a free man because he didn't commit a crime in Japan. So after spending 18 months in the hospital, Issei checks himself out, goes under a different name, and lives peacefully in Japan with the public. And that's not even the bad part. He publishes a book titled In the Fog, which I guess is him essentially describing his crime from his point of view, and it sells very well. And this is when I thought I was having a stroke, because I started to hear Eurythmics with camera flashes of Issei on screen. Sweet dreams are made of rain. What? Why is Issei in a fucking makeup chair? He wrote 19 more books about his crime, worked as a columnist, gave lectures, had 2